Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Note that all board members are present. Item number 2.0 is adoption of the agenda. We will need to add just recommendation for employment. Krista Garcia would be added to the recommendation for employment. Otherwise, anything else, Lori?
No.
To accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Joanne,
Second.
second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 3.0 is approve the minutes for the August 17 regular meeting and the September 3rd special meeting. If there are no questions or additions, corrections, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by David, second by Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 4.0 is consideration of bills and warrants. That's pages 8 through 27. Hope everyone has an opportunity to look through those. Any questions? Accept those now. Otherwise, take a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion by Joanne. Second by Olivia. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 5.0 is hearing requests and suggestions from citizens. I see no one here. So we'll move forward to 6.0, report from the superintendent.
All right, today is September the 21st, which means it is officially count day across the state of Kansas. And so that's the day that funding is based, dependent upon who's enrolled and who's in attendance in the different buildings. So once some of that data was cleaned up, that enrollment data from last week, it looks like as of today, our number was 1317 for enrolled, and that's down 11 from last year. So typically when school starts in August, we have 4 or 5 weeks, 20 plus days to get students enrolled and to get them there and on, and going. And this year with only just the 9 days, we did have a family of 3 that enrolled last week, but when we called, they didn't show up this morning. And when we called, and in fact, an administrator made a home visit, they were sick. And so they weren't feeling well, so they didn't come today. So that's 3 students that may come tomorrow, probably. We think we'll pick them up. So I think we'll continue to pick students up the longer that we're in session. However, that funding is based on that number. Right now, we have 222 students, about 17% of our student body population that are enrolled in remote. And so
I'm sorry, what was that percentage?
about 17%, so it's gone down a little. We do have students that are continuing to come back from remote to the face-to-face instruction. Remote instruction is difficult, and we're working through the kinks. Part of it, we've got some of our equipment that is back ordered, and so at one point we gave the students the teacher Chromebooks so that all the students could have a device. So we're still waiting on those Chromebooks to come back in. So the teacher's computer, they have a computer, but it's a desktop and it's fixed to the area. So in our wireless mics, those have been pushed back again. So for that remote learning, it hasn't been easy, but we're continuing to work it out, trying to make it the very best that it can be, both in person and remote. At the elementaries, they have a schedule that a student follows to do the remote, and with middle school and high school, it's their typical attendance schedule.
So are they in when the classes are going on?
Yes.
So they're just right in with the class.
And so, and our teachers are, it's a huge learning curve because now we have students in class, in person, as well as on the computer. And so we're trying to manage the technology the best we can so that everyone remotely can hear while also teaching, but managing the behaviors, of both. So it's a learning curve. They're working really hard, to get it done. So the state has changed some of those requirements for remote learners. At one point, the parent, when we talked about it before, had to have a remote learning log that they signed every day, and then they turned it in, and that was how we were going to get funding. I think there was enough pushback to KSDE that now they have a remote assurance page. And so we put that out on all of our social media. We sent the link out via email as well as hard copies. So that's the assurance page that parents would sign and return by October 4th. And then that ensures that they understand what their responsibilities are, what ours are, and we receive the funding that way.
So
Our
it-
district
go ahead.
is, that's where we're moving toward, and that's what's replacing the existing, the original.
Right.
Okay.
Instead of doing the logs, which are not required by KSDE anymore, we have the remote assurance page, and we sent it out last week.
So it's a one-time deal.
One-time deal for parents. So we did our remote assurance document for the entire district clear back in August before school started. That was something that KSD wanted. If we were going to offer remote, we had to sign it. Mike had to sign it, and we had to send it in. So that's been done. As far as enrollment in Viking Virtual, so we have currently about 1% of our student population. So we have 11 students that are enrolled out of our 17. Now, with that, it's a little bit different because in Viking Virtual, there's a requirement before count day, you have to have logged a 6-hour workday within a 24-hour period. So they have to do that twice for virtual funding. You have to do it once prior to count day and then once between count day and October the 4th. And so we went through and contacted, and administrators have been contacting, and counselors contacting parents and explaining that expectation and that requirement, and most of them have done that, So that's kind of where we're at with enrollment.
That 100% equals approximately how many students?
It's 11. So we have 11 students that are doing that, and that's just middle school and high school. And all of those 11 met the 6-hour in a 24-hour period. And I expect that they'll do that again during this next window so that we receive the funding. Funding for a virtual student is different in that it's a $5,000 flat fee, and there are none of those weightings. So we get additional money for at-risk, free and reduced meals, transportation. With a virtual student, you don't get any of those weightings. You just get the flat $5,000 if they've met the time requirement. And then we have to pay Greenbush to administer the program. So it works out that we clear about $1,200 per student for students that elect to do that. And so that's why it's important that if they choose to do that, they're consistent with that and doing it. Because we've told folks, and we'll continue to tell people, that the way in which you learn is optional. We have in-person, we have remote, we had Viking Virtual, but learning is not optional. It isn't like last spring, where we're just all trying to get by. We have standards to meet and work to do, so.
On the remote learning, is it logged in? I mean, can the state come in and audit the time they've been on the computer as such?
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to audit our enrollment and our attendance data. So for a high school kid, they're going to, if they log in on their Zoom, the teacher takes attendance every hour. And that's how the state will determine how much that child has been attending, based on their attendance. That's the contact log.
Okay, but just because they logged in, does that count for attendance? So let's say they're only on there for 10, 15 minutes, does that count for the full period?
That it does, because it may be, once they've logged in to the Zoom meeting and they've gotten the instruction, it may be that they have to stay on for the whole 40 or 50 minutes to participate in the discussion, answer questions, get their information from the teacher. Or it could be that they log on, the teacher gives the instruction and the assignment, and then the student logs off to independently do the work and then logs back on for their next hour.
Okay.
So, but we are definitely learning about, and it's, something new, for sure. But we're working.
Anything else, Lori?
I don't have anything else.
Any
Anybody else have any
questions? Any
questions?
more questions? Okay, we'll move on to 7.0, the Tri-County Report. I tell you this, but there were short meetings. The biggest thing was that we have approved a stipend for cell phone for the directors. It's a $50 a month stipend. We're still working on the policy to make that work. We have added some wordings to the personnel manuals, and we are going to fund another speech language person starting the fall of 2021. That we're keeping 3 of those going in college. they agree then to come work for us for a specific amount of time, once that's done. And then we updated a lot of other policies. That was it. Any questions? Not. 8.0 is report from the principals. They got a handout in front of you that they sent in today. Hope you had time to at least scan that. What I've noticed is that the students are doing a great job with masks, and that
They are. Some of the highlights, Dr. Legler came to Lincoln and talked to all of the students about wearing a mask and why we wear them, and I think that was good. Kids were interested. It was, and so with Picture Day, September 25th there. Garfield, the same thing. We've got both remote. They're working really hard, and they're doing a good job wearing their masks. And they started out with 27 remote students, and now they're down to 17. So Guthridge, the same thing. And this is where we start to really struggle with the engagement of the remote learners in the upper grade levels. So that's something that they're continuing to work with. But we've had 16 of our Guthridge folks come back face to face. And then there's our high school, and it's talking about the remote learning, how it's been very difficult. They're still working out the kinks. Today is the first inaugural game for soccer over there. It was our first home game, and we scored our first goal. And so it was fun to get out and watch, and there are 3 or 4 administrators that are over there right now.
It was a pretty good little crowd, too.
It really was a good crowd. It really was. And then some things that are going on at the middle school. It's going very well over there as well.
Clarification for the high school and possibly the middle school. I read Eric Swanson's bulletin today, and in regard to students that have to take a test. So for parents and guardians, we need to make sure they understand from what he said that if a student is remote, they're offered the opportunity to come to the cafeteria where there's plenty of room and things are scrubbed down and sprayed down and cleaned off, and there's more room for distancing so they can take the test in the building. Although students and parents chose to be remote, I'm not sure why they would come into the building. So Eric offered the option to have the test taken at home as long as there's a proctor, whether it's the parent or an advisor. I'm not exactly sure what he meant, but I've got the gist.
And
Is that a true statement?
And that is something we're continuing to work out. They recommended.
Well, no, is that a true statement?
As of I know right now, yes.
Okay, so they have an option. They could actually take the test at home as long as
And
it's
I think-
monitored and proctored.
And I think that is going to depend on the class and possibly, and on the teacher. Simply, well,
That's why I'm asking for
I know,
clarification.
but I wasn't aware that you needed clarification before right now, or I could have gotten it. Because at first what they said was KSD wanted us to have everyone come in for the tests. And so when we read through that, we assumed that that meant the big tests, like the DIBELS, or possibly the state assessments. And then as you read further into the remote information, it says they're required to take the same tests and assessments that our in-person kids would take. And so then it became, okay, so then all the chapter tests and the quizzes, do they have to come in for that? Do they have to, or can they do that at home if there's a proctor? I mean, we're going to do the very best we can to make it
Fair.
fair and
Well, and that's why I said, it was a clarification question, so there's no misunderstanding. That's why I asked the question.
I don't think there's a consensus yet.
I don't think there is, and that's why,
Okay, well, he did put in his bulletin, and I read it, and I read it to some of the people at the shelter, Ernest Moreland and
I would
company.
suggest to you that probably that's not set in stone yet.
right.
Well, again, that's a clarification, so
And
we're
when
letting the
we-
people know, it's not set in stone, but we want to be as fair as possible.
We do, so. And I think it's different if there's a large setting where there are remote, a number of remote students, that's different. Possibly because we don't want for them to have to run back and forth all day long, but it needs to be equitable. It's something we're still working out.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to 9.0, in old business, approve the social media guidelines.
Okay, so the guidelines are back in the book. On page 30 to 34, I did call KASB and visit with them after our last board meeting, just to share and get clarification about FERPA and about HIPAA to make sure that we were meeting those requirements, and if there was anything else, any other language that we needed to add. And Ashley said that we did not need to add anything about HIPAA, since that's health-related and that's not what this is referring to. We did have something about FERPA already in there, and she felt like that was adequate. It's on page 33 of your packet, the very top one, with the bullet about respecting the privacy and rights of both colleagues and students. Confidential student or personnel information shouldn't be posted online, and be sure not to violate any provisions of the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I've read this 2 or 3 times, and I appreciate the fact that the FERPA is in there. But on page 32, my wife asked me to watch a video called The Social Dilemma. It was put out in January of this year, 2020. And it talks about social media, specifically more about Facebook. And it's kind of scary. In the middle of the page, on page 32, the lines between public and private, personal and professional are blurred in the online world, and I agree with that 100%. And then we go on page 33, employee-student relations. And there are a couple of things in there that are, and we can discuss this, that are kind of bothersome. The last sentence next to the last paragraph, it is USD 503's recommendation that if an employee decides to accept friend or follower requests received from students, that they should accept all such requests and not selectively limit their interactions to what could be perceived as a few preferred individuals. This video that I watched, there were engineers, social engineers, that quit Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and said the social media, they were engineer hackers trying to get all of us to press the like button, to put on emojis because they want to follow us, because it's a money-making machine. So Facebook specifically has turned from a tool-based technology to an addiction manipulation-based technology. And they had said there's 2 industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. The scary part about Facebook is we've seen, or some of us have seen, that some teachers have interacted with students and got themselves in a lot of trouble using Facebook or Messenger or the like. I would not want to set up any teacher I wouldn't want to open up a can of worms, is what I'm trying to say. And to endorse Facebook, I'm a Facebook user, but I'm 77 years old. I don't have any dogs in a race, and they can manipulate me all they want. I don't have the money to buy all that stuff that they're trying to sell me or influence my voting. However, since 2010, the depression rates of young kids have gone up 2.7 times, and for girls, the teen suicides, the harming and cutting is up 62% for older teen girls from 10 to 13, up 189% for preteen girls. And the suicide for 15 to 18-year-old girls is 70% up, as well as for preteen girls, 10 to 14, 150%. My point is, I don't want our teachers to be exposed to that kind of trouble. There's all kinds of other ways to communicate with kids. Facebook should not be one, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. And then we're saying if you let one student in, you've got to let them all in. I don't want any of them in. I'm just saying.
My interpretation of this statement on page 33 is that we are encouraging our employees to not discriminate against who they friend or follow. And so while it's their choice whether they friend or follow. What we're trying to get across is you shouldn't engage in discriminatory behavior in who you friend or follow. And so we're just trying to guard against that. That's my interpretation. We're not encouraging people to friend or follow everybody. We're just encouraging them to.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, as one person, I would discourage my teachers from using Facebook as a way to communicate with students,
Okay.
as well as Messenger. That's all I'm saying. So I would take this out or change it to discourage and use some other tools that we have that are more professional-based instead of personal-based. Facebook has some really good things on it, but there's a lot of evil, negative crap on there that our kids are being exposed to. And if you have kids, you know your kids are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. It's a lot of time that kids spend on these.
I think the problem with that, Lou, though, is, as a district, is it our right and responsibility or even legal for us to suggest that, you know, for example, when you were an employee here 20 years ago, to tell you you shouldn't do that. And so while I hear you, I think this is trying to arrive at a balance at, we recognize everything you're saying. I think all of us do, and we see it. It's
Well, then it needs to be it needs to be honed down a little more.
I think the key, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
don't want to encourage our teachers to get on Facebook with students. I was never on Facebook with students in my 30 years.
If our teachers were never on Facebook, we wouldn't have a need for this.
I said as a personal page.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, you want to set up a professional page, which may have a different standard based on some of the things that are said in here, but I certainly wouldn't want to encourage to have all these friends. What I'm saying is, knowing the statistics about what Facebook does to young kids, as a district, I would not want to encourage our teachers to promote Facebook or Instagram or TikTok.
And it does say that they, you know.
I read it.
Okay.
I read it 3 times.
Okay.
And I watched the video. All I'm saying is, this is my personal opinion.
I think a key word in that sentence is the word if. If they elect to do that. And really, no, all we could do is encourage them not to. We can't.
And that's my point. That's all we have to say. We are not encouraging you to do this, but if you choose it in a professional way and follow the said policies. That's all.
Anything else on this? What are your wishes? Accept it and move forward, or table it again and do something else with it?
If it needs cleaning up, revamp it.
I don't know. I just,
I
Yeah, I
feel.
think the heart of it, and believe me, Lou, I'm totally on the same page. I saw the women, and I mean, it's mind blowing, I mean, it really is, the perspective of how that, actually, that whole, the monetary system of that
Yeah.
works and the unintended consequences of Facebook and
Yeah.
TikTok. That being said, I mean, I think we have to have a social media guideline and policy, and I think it's not set in stone, and could it be tweaked a little bit more, but the reality of it is, I think this is foundational enough to.
Well, if it were tweaked a little bit, I would go along with that. As long as, the point is, I wouldn't want to encourage them you said you saw the video? It's pretty scary.
It is scary.
It's, we're algorithms. We're monetary units. And each time the kid presses a like, that's a dopamine hit. And what's that saying the kids have? FOMO, F-O-M-O. Fear of missing out. That's what's causing a lot of depression.
I think the heart of this is good. I would make a motion to approve the social media guidelines.
Okay, so a motion by David to approve it as printed. Do we have a second?
second?
Second by Jeff. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign.
No.
No.
It passed 5-2. 10.0, action to accept donations to schools, page 35 in your material.
Okay, so these were the donations received by the school district in August of 2020. Garfield PTO teacher mini grants, $2,200. Lincoln Elementary PTO teacher mini grants, $2,800. Interstate Studio, which is a picture donation, $447.74. And Caring for Classroom for bulletin board and magnetic easels, $41.30, for a total of $3,289.04 at Lincoln. At Guthridge, PTO made the donation of the teacher mini grants for $2,600. That was the total there. Parsons Middle School, Pittsco, made a donation of a wind tunnel to Mr. Mazaral and his class, so that's a restricted donation valued at $5,125. So that was the total at the middle school. At the high school, LCC nursing program donated health science program, a mannequin worth $1,000. CLC Designs donated $12.70 toward the positive reinforcement program. Ohio Pile Prints donated $16.19 toward the positive reinforcement program. Labette Health made a donation to the track program for $500, for a total of $1,528.89 to the high school, bringing the grand total school district donations for the month of August to $14,742.93.
Any questions? Not accept the motion to accept the donations. Motion by Olivia,
Second.
second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Action 10.1 is to action to appoint a representative to the Delegate Assembly of KSD Convention, which will be remote, December 2nd through the 4th.
So typically, this is where we either
Attending.
go to Kansas City or to Wichita. It'll all be virtual this year.
I'll do it with you, Mike. So we just watch from our
Yeah.
own house?
One of us will get to vote, that's what it is. When the Delegate Assembly meets, there's one person, one voting representative from each school district. If you want to be that delegate. And I'm not sure whether we're going to actually meet then, or whether it's going to be in January. There's discussion to have the Delegate Assembly in January in conjunction with another meeting in Topeka.
Oh, so they might actually do that, the voting part in person.
Might.
Might. Okay.
Well, historically, Mike has represented us there. Does anyone else have an interest in being that delegate?
Yeah, I said I would.
Oh, so you said you would be,
Yeah, well, I said I would be with him, and then I guess we can decide between the two of us which ones to vote.
We'll have to turn in a name.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and turn in your name, and then next year maybe I'll know how to vote.
okay. So I nominate Mike then as our
Yeah.
delegated representative.
Motion by Jeff. Second by, is that David? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 10.2 is action on revised calendar. That should be in your packet, it's the last page.
It's on page 36, and so we've got it updated, and we did, Olivia last week said we should probably send it out to those folks that were on the calendar committee, which is a good idea, so we did that, asking for any feedback. The dates primarily stayed, the dates moved just a little, but they knew that was going to happen when we started later, so.
So I just have a question. Assuming that we typically try to follow the Regent schools, if they don't have a spring break, we're still planning on having a spring break? Is that what I see here?
That's what's currently printed on
Okay.
this calendar.
As I understand, there is a move afoot to coordinate spring breaks between the region schools and KSDE for, I assume, maybe next year.
Okay.
Be a good idea.
That would be a good idea.
Just asking because, it's one of those deals that if the Regents don't end up having a spring break, we could pick up some of the days we were looking for. I'm just throwing that out there.
We could.
discussion, and I guess we could revise this calendar, although we may have families making vacation plans already over spring break, which I guess they could be remote learners over spring break
It could be.
from wherever. Okay.
So is there, you're okay with it, Jeff, or you think we ought to revise it?
No, I just, was just throwing that out there for consideration. I don't view it one way or another. I was just wondering if the Regent schools, I know Wichita State, we're not gonna have a spring break, and if the others follow suit and don't have a spring break, I just wonder whether we want one for the same reasons they're not wanting one for people to leave, but I understand at universities, people leave and go home and go on vacations and all that, whereas people around here may not leave, so we may not have as big of a risk of bringing in virus, but I'm just throwing that out. But I have no problem with the calendar.
As you say, this could be revised, come along.
Yeah.
It sure
Right.
could be.
Yeah, we may have to revise everything.
And I mean, that's a possibility that we
Yeah.
would have to,
Yeah.
if too many days missed, we would have to
Yeah.
throw this, go during this time.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the revised calendar as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Joanne,
Second it.
second by Olivia. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 10.3 is executive session for personnel. I know we need about 20 minutes. Anybody else have anything, executive session?
I do.
How much time do you need?
Oh, maybe 10 minutes at the most.
Okay, we'll look at 30. Anybody else have anything? Okay,
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session, discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception or COMA, the exception for employer negotiations under COMA, at 6:32 for 30 minutes, and we'll return to this open meeting at 7:02.
have a motion by Jeff, executive session, second by Lou, to go into executive session for 30 minutes, starting at 6:32, return here at 7:32 with the board and superintendent, assistant superintendent, and attendance. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Some on it. Jeff, you make that motion?
I'll make a motion, we go back into executive session for 15 minutes for the same purpose at 7:02. Come back here, open meeting 7:17.
Second by Lou. Any discussion? I just lost Mrs. Lyons.
That's all right.
Go ahead, okay.
Yep.
Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, we'll carry 6-0. We'll go ahead and start. When Mrs. Lyons comes back, let her in, please. Okay. we do have a request to talk about, it's just a discussion, we can't do anything about it. We talk about an issue at the high school gym.
So we did have a company that installed a coating on top of the gym. That's typically done every year. The first install was not done properly, whether that product or installation was still up for debate. They came 2 additional times in order to correct that issue. Neither of those times were they able to do that, and so now we have a gym floor that we can only use about half of. This is the main gym, because we have spots where it is pooled underneath and it's peeling, big chunks. So we did have another company that came and looked at it and gave us a quote in order to repair it. In order to repair it, it's going to have to be sanded completely down to bare wood. And then the graphics will have to be reapplied, and then the coating will be put on the top. So this was,
Is that a 3 to 4 week process?
they think they can get it done in 2, because we're going to, instead of using an oil-based top, which is typically what we have done and takes longer, they will use a water-based sealant, which dries quicker. So we are in the process of getting on their calendar in order to get that done. And we are in negotiations with the other company, the original company, in regard to paying the cost to have this repaired.
So what was the cost?
The estimate was, I want to say 25,000. It was north of 20. I didn't bring it with me.
And that's total striping, everything.
That is everything, yes.
We're not out a penny.
But she's in negotiation.
Right now, we are currently discussing
No,
it.
I know, but with,
Right now,
That's what we're
we're not out a penny, we're just out of gym floor. And so,
Which really causes havoc with PE, right?
well, it causes havoc with PE, and then with volleyball, we've had to move some volleyball things to the auxiliary gym and over to the middle school for safety purposes. So I'm waiting for a response from the initial company in regard to how they're going to make that right.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, I don't know what the difference between water-based and oil-based coatings are, but whatever we put down needs to be long-term. We need to think
Right.
long-term and,
Long-term is a year.
Yeah, typically it's a year. This is something that's done every year.
oh, okay.
And so we've just never had this kind of problem
Yeah, the college does
before.
theirs every year.
And so-
they screen it, they don't take it all the way down like
No,
this
this is about every 15 years is when they go clear down to bare wood and start over.
Okay.
Our floor is, what did we say the other day? It was 13 years old, so we're getting close. However, this had not been budgeted or planned, and had it been done correctly, whether that be installation or the product being correct, we would not be in this situation. So, but I do feel like the company that did the initial install is going to make it right.
So what if KSP attorney sent them a demand letter?
We could do that. We just haven't done that yet. I'm hoping that
Well, I'm just saying.
that is something, if,
They're a vendor of ours on other things.
They
and
are a
so
vendor.
I would encourage us not to go, the board to go that far yet.
right. I feel like they need, I've sent their representative an email with the quote, and so,
Okay.
Give them the opportunity.
right. And I do think they will make it right. And if not, then we'll go from there.
We'll go down a different road.
We
Any
will.
other questions or comments on that? If not, we'll move to 10.4, action on personnel.
Okay, so recommendations for employment, we have Susan Ackley, food service scanner, effective September the 8th, 2020. Josh Burns, Guthridge Middle School library aide, effective September 8th, 2020. Kevin Wiles, assistant boys soccer coach, effective the 2021 season. Crystal Garcia, Garfield sweeper, effective September the 16th, 2020. I recommend that you approve those recommendations for employment.
I so move.
Motion by Roger, second by Lou. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carried 7-0. Nothing else before the board, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Secret.